Right, it's 101, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. We're excited to share information with you today about TEA's Bluebonnet Learning Spanish Pilot Instructional Materials. My name is Ann Lauren Mars, and I'm the Open Education Resources Director of Academic Content. And I'm joined by Jennifer Aguirre, Executive Director of Open Education Resources. As we present today, we encourage you to submit your questions using the Q&A feature, and we'll work to answer them during the session. If we're unable to answer them, or if we run out of time, we will follow up via a Q&A document. In today's session, we will explain what pilot instructional materials are and discuss 3 products available for pilot, outline expectations for piloting districts, and explain print and digital access to pilot materials. Please note that if you attended a previous Spanish pilot instructional materials webinar, we'll be covering the same information today. So it will be the same information today that we have covered in previous webinars. Let's start by defining pilot instructional materials. Bluebonnet Learning Pilot Instructional Materials are state-developed instructional materials aligned with state standards that have not yet been approved through the State Board of Education's Instructional Materials Review and Allotment process. Review and approval process, I apologize. Pilot instructional materials help TEA gather meaningful feedback that can improve the final version of the materials, implementation supports, and digital access. It's important to note that pilot materials are available to any school district that agrees to participation requirements. The 2 requirements of pilot participation are that districts commit to provide product and pilot feedback through implementation surveys, and secondly, that districts restrict pilot content access to pilot teachers, students, and families of pilot participants. Now I'm going to hand it off to Jen to walk you through the products available for pilot.
Thanks, Ann Lauren. Good afternoon, team. On this slide, you'll see both the Spanish and English titles of the pilot instructional materials that are available for school year 25-26. These titles will be used interchangeably throughout the presentation today. For school years 25-26, the following pilot instructional materials will be available for classroom implementation in print and digital formats. Aprendizaje Bluebonnet Matemáticas, K5. Aprendizaje Bluebonnet Destrezas Fundamentales, K2. And Aprendizaje Bluebonnet Artes de Lenguaje y Lectura, K5. Please note that QTI assessments and projectables are not included in the pilot materials. Additionally, Grade 3 Spanish foundational skills will not be available for pilot. However, it will be submitted for review as part of our IMRA 2025 process. As we preview each of these product offerings, I again want to encourage you to please leverage the Q&A feature of this webinar to ask your questions, and specifically in this next section of the webinar, your content-specific questions, and we will work to answer them in this session. Okay, let's dive in. I'm excited to preview for you Aprendizaje Bluebonnet Matemáticas K5 materials. Our K5 math Spanish materials are a trans-adapted version of our Bluebonnet Math K5 English Edition 1 materials. Like our Bluebonnet Learning Math K5 English Edition, our Spanish math materials have everything teachers need to deliver high-quality Tier 1 instruction through the Teacher Edition. Our K-5 Math Spanish student-facing materials have everything students need with the Learn, Practice, and Succeed resources. Learn provides application problems, exit tickets, problem sets, and any student-facing templates needed for the lesson. Sorry about that. Practice includes the fluency sprints and any student-facing fluency templates needed for fluency activities in the lesson. And Succeed includes homework and family supports called homework helpers. The Spanish K-5 math materials include print and digital versions of the teacher editions, as well as student editions Learn, Practice, and Succeed. The Spanish program guide, course guides, family guide, and PDF versions of the assessments are all available digitally. Okay. Aprendizaje Bluebonnet Destrezas Fundamentales K2 is Spanish Foundational Skills product. These materials are intentionally designed to support student learning authentically in the Spanish language. Specifically, the materials are based on critiques and have a systematic scope and sequence. They include sound blending and syllable segmentation, dictation, and include applied reading skills and bilingual connections. As with all of our Bluebonnet learning products, our Destrezas Fundamentales materials include everything teachers need to deliver high-quality instructional materials through the teacher guide and detailed lessons.
Hey, Jen, you're
Yeah.
breaking up a little bit, so I'm wondering, it might help to go off camera.
Thank you for flagging that. All right, can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Great, let's see if that helps, and if it doesn't, please jump in again. Thank you. Okay. Thinking about Destrezas Fundamentales K2, students are provided with everything they need through the student activity books, as well as the big books and readers. Each unit also comes with unit-specific components, such as the image cards, the digital components, and the materials to support teaching and learning, again, both on the teacher side and on our student side. The Spanish Foundational Skills materials include print and digital versions of the teacher guides, student activity books, and some of the unit-specific components, such as teacher books, readers, and image cards. The Spanish program guide, bilingual resource guide, family welcome letters, independent reading guide, and teacher and coach observation tools will all be available digitally as PDFs. Again, please note that third grade foundational skills instructional materials are not included as part of the pilot, but will be submitted as part of our IMRA 2025 submission. Finally, the third program we are piloting in Spanish is Aprendizaje Bluebonnet Artes de Lenguaje y Lectura K5. Like our other pilot programs, educators will have access to the Spanish version of our program and implementation guide. Unique to this program, however, is a biliteracy resource guide designed to offer implementation guidance for different biliteracy program models. Aprendizaje Bluebonnet Artes de Lenguaje y Lectura offers everything needed to deliver high-quality Tier 1 instruction from a detailed teacher guide, as you'll see here, to student activity books and unit-specific components to support teaching and learning. All Spanish products aim for parallel alignment between the English and Spanish materials. Teachers will find the same components in both languages, offering a consistent structure, making it easy to navigate the program regardless of the language of instruction. By maintaining this alignment, we support teachers in making connections and transitions between the English and the Spanish programs, enhancing teachers' ability to support bilingual program students. Like the English language arts counterpart, the Spanish materials are grounded in the TEKS as well as a knowledge building approach, with TEKS-aligned units related to literature, science, and social studies. Units are a combination of trans-adapted and trans-created content intended to work harmoniously with Bluebonnet Learning Reading Language Arts K-5. Transadaptation is the process of translating content from English into Spanish that adapts the content, taking into consideration grammatical structures, vocabulary, and syntax, as well as differences between English and Spanish reading language arts TEKS. About 80% of the knowledge building RLA units are trans-adapted. Transcreation is the process of developing Spanish content that is parallel to the English content. Transcreated units cover the same genres as the English content and cover most of the same standards. Transcreated content offers different from trans-adapted content in that the text studied is an authentic Spanish story, either a trade book or a story written by the publisher. As such, the lesson vocabulary and lesson activities, such as writing, align to the authentic Spanish text. This approach allows students to experience authentic Spanish texts in addition to classics such as La Isla del Tesoro, or Treasure Island, in 4th grade, and A Midsummer Night's Dream, or Sueño de una Noche de Verano, in 5th grade. Additionally, students read numerous trans-adapted and authentic Spanish trade books across the program K through 5. The teacher's guides, student activity books, and some of the unit-specific components will be available both in print as digital PDFs for the pilot. The program guide, bilingual resource guide, family welcome letters, independent reading guide, and observation tools will all be available as digital PDFs only. Okay, we are about to move into the final section of today's webinar, Pilot Expectations and Logistics. Before we do, I want to pause and give our moderators the chance to answer any questions that have come through, and to encourage you, the audience, to please drop any content-specific questions into the Q&A feature of this webinar.
Jen, it does look like we have a few questions in the chat. It looks like our moderators are typing answers to those questions. One question that's, well, they're typing, so I think we can move forward unless Kelly or Allison, are there any questions that you see that you'd like to share? Okay, it looks like some of the questions will be answered as we move on in our deck, so.
Perfect.
Great. So now that we reviewed the products available for pilot, we will discuss pilot expectations and feedback. And I think some of your questions are actually about this portion, so you'll get some answers here. TEA is collecting feedback on pilot materials in several ways. First is through formal feedback to be collected through required beginning of year, middle of year, and end of year surveys. Additional feedback can be submitted anytime through the Instructional Materials Help Desk and/or the OER inbox, and that is Open Education Resources at tea.texas.gov. Our goal is to apply feedback to Edition 1 materials being reviewed as part of EMRA 2025. Feedback from pilot participants is welcome on all aspects of Spanish products. Feedback topics in the beginning, middle, and end of year surveys will include rigor of the materials, feedback on grammar and transadaptation, specifically word choice, math and RLA lesson components, as well as the implementation supports and digital access platform. Finally, we'll finish the webinar by discussing print and digital access to Spanish pilot instructional materials. Districts interested in participating in the pilot will apply via a Smartsheet form. The deadline to apply is June 6, 2025. Once approved, the district point of contact will receive an email that includes a link to the digital version of pilot materials. The district point of contact will click the link, log in using their TEA Learn account, or register for that account if they don't have one yet, and then access the pilot materials. Please note that teachers should not complete the pilot form individually. TEA will share information on how to give access to teachers following your pilot approval. District access to pilot materials can only be granted after pilot participation has been requested by a district leader and approved by TEA. Districts interested in previewing the Spanish product will be able to view the version submitted to EMRA 2025 once materials are publicly available mid to late April. Education service centers interested in obtaining access to the pilot materials can likewise request access via a Smartsheet form. This form will be shared directly with ESCs. And I actually think that was one of the questions in the chat. The pilot instructional materials will not be available for requisition in EMAT. Print orders must be placed directly with approved print providers no later than June 13th, 2025. Pricing is currently being determined, so please reach out directly to approved print providers in the coming weeks for further details on that. New House Bill 1605 entitlement funds cannot be used to purchase pilot materials. Potential available sources of funding may include instructional materials and technology allotment, strong foundations, implementation grant funds, and/or local funds that you have. Pilot print providers include Region 4's ESC Printworks for all pilot products and Great Minds for Spanish, Math, K-5 pilot materials. Please note that shipments of pilot instructional materials may arrive in batches throughout the school year, and delivery will follow the scope and sequence of implementation to limit classroom disruptions. To apply, districts will need to first download the acknowledgements and assurances form. Second, complete the Bluebonnet Learning Spanish Pilot Application Smartsheet form. Third, attach the completed and signed acknowledgements and assurances form to the Smartsheet. And fourth, hit the submit button. Once submitted, TEA staff will follow up with information on access to the digital materials. Remember that teachers should not complete the pilot form individually. TEA will share information on teacher access following pilot approval. Also, completing these steps in no way obligates you to the pilot, but a district who has been granted access is still accountable for following the pilot copyright and licensing requirements. We will drop these links in the chat, and questions can be answered via the instructional materials help desk. As you consider pilot participation and implementation, steps to consider in your planning include ensuring your district's annual certification of provision of instructional materials is completed, engaging with your teachers and ensuring they're on board with pilot participation, including the additional expectations for participants like providing feedback, completing the application Smartsheet form inclusive of the pilot acknowledgements and assurances, placing your print materials order, accessing the pilot materials via Bluebonnet Learning Portal, and ensuring your teachers and families of pilot participants have access through the district, connecting with a strong foundations approved provider such as your ESC for summer product training and orientation, and be ready to distribute materials to campuses once print shipments are received. Finally, it's important to know that if Bluebonnet Learning Spanish instructional materials are approved by the SBOE during the EMRA 2025 process, Spanish pilot materials will no longer be available for use after June 30th, 2026. This means that LEAs will need to purchase the SBOE approved version of the materials for use in the 2026-27 school year. SBOE approved instructional materials are eligible for the use of House Bill 1605 entitlement funds. Finally, we encourage you to visit the Bluebonnet Learning Pilot Instructional Materials link for additional information. This includes access to sample units, component lists, and print vendor information. TEA is hosting additional information sessions about Bluebonnet Learning Spanish pilot instructional materials for interested school systems throughout April. These links are also available on the Bluebonnet Learning Pilot Instructional Materials website. And we're actually working to add 2 more sessions in May, and those links will be added. These slides are also available on the website. As we wrap up our webinar, please add any additional questions to the Q&A that you have not had a chance to submit. Make sure to include your contact information so that we can follow up with you directly. While you finish entering questions in the Q&A, I'll review 3 frequently asked questions on our final slide. Question 1 is, what digital platform will the instructional materials be on? Will they still be on the gateway? All Bluebonnet learning materials will now be housed in a new digital platform to go live later this month. The platform has an improved user experience and interface, and the Texas Gateway will no longer be used for Bluebonnet materials. We're really excited about the new platform. Question 2, when can we have access to pilot materials? Turnaround time for digital access to pilot materials depends on the volume of applications for the pilot. Districts can expect access within 10 to 14 working days of the submission of a completed pilot application, including the acknowledgements and assurances form. And FAQ number 3, what level of permissions do I need to receive access to pilot materials and/or order print? Piloting districts need to have approval from their school board, superintendent, and chief academic officer or an equivalent district leader. Additionally, piloting districts should have evidence that classroom teachers support the use of these materials. If you didn't get an answer to your question during the webinar and have submitted to the Q&A with your contact information, our team will follow up with you directly. Thank you so much for joining us today.